everyone and welcome back to the other side. So I hope that this lighting looks better in my last video. So I also noticed in a couple of my other videos that the lighting looks really dark, so I put my blind up to let some natural lighting in. So I hope this looks a lot better, so let me know. Although I guess I'll see when I'm editing this video. But today is another story. I decided to do stories for like a couple of videos because I haven't really done any. So this one is called Buried Alive, and the last one I did was the story of Bloody Bill. So if you want to go see last week's video, then go and watch that. But this week's story is called Buried Alive, and the reason why I chose this one is because it reminded me of Pretty Little Liars, because you know how I don't want to say it's a spoiler because it's been like ages since this episode and Pretty Little Liars is finished now, but it's because of you know how Allison, she gets buried alive. So I decided to do this one because it reminded me of Pretty Little Liars. So anyway, so let's get on with the story, and I think this is a lot shorter than Bloody Bill is, so let's go. So Buried Alive is a creepy story about an old couple who lived together in a little house on the edge of town. They had been married for so long that they knew everything about each other. They knew each other so well that they even finished each other's sentences. Oh my god, that's like the Frozen song. One day the old woman fell ill and her husband spent every day by her bedside trying to nurse her back to health. Unfortunately, the old woman passed away and her husband was devastated by the loss. She was his one true love. Soon afterwards, the doctor arrived and pronounced her dead. Because it was the middle of summer, they had a small funeral service and buried her the next day. The old man was so grief-stricken that as his wife's coffin was being lowered into the grave, he tried to jump in after her. The people at the funeral had to hold him back until the grave was filled in. Lonely and miserable, the old man returned to his empty house that night. He was awakened by a strange scratching sound. It grew louder and louder, but he couldn't figure out where it was coming from. When he turned over in bed, he was met with a terrifying sight. He saw a figure of a woman standing outside his bedroom window. With horror, he realized it was his wife. Oh my god, it's so creepy. Her eyes were sunken and low. Her mouth was open wide and in a silent scream. And her fingers were clawing at the window pane. When he ran to the window and opened it, the figure vanished into thin air. He phoned the doctor immediately and begged to have his wife's body exhumed from the grave. Exhumed? Is that how you say that word? The doctor refused to allow the coffin to be dug up, but telling the old man that he was just suffering from stress after his wife's death. But the old man continued to see the same ghostly apparition outside his window every night. Finally, the old man couldn't stand it anymore. He got out of bed, got dressed, grabbed a shovel, and headed for the graveyard. He came to his wife's grave and began digging and digging. When he eventually unearthed his wife's coffin and pried open the lid, he recoiled in horror. His wife's mouth was wide open, frozen in a silent scream. There were scratch marks all over the inside of the coffin lid, and her fingers were worn down to the bone. Oh, that's so creepy. So that is the end of the story. It's a lot shorter than Bloody Bill, but I just thought it was really creepy, and again, it reminded me of Pretty Little Liars. And also, like, when it says that he saw her standing at the window, that also reminded me in the episode when, because obviously in the 6th or 7th season we find out about Mary Drake, who is Jessica De Laurentiis' Ali's mum. It's her sister, her twin sister, so Ali's aunt. She is, I think it's the season 6 finale that this happens in, when it's in the time jump, and she's dressed like she's Jessica De Laurentiis as she was like dug up from the grave, and she like just points to Allison. If you're a Pretty Little Liar fan, you know what I'm talking about. But that also reminded me of that as well. So because she pretends to be her mum to like freak Allison out and everything, and so yeah, that just reminded me of that as well. So yeah, that was a pretty creepy story, very short, but I figured I'd do a short one after the last week's was a bit longer. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Alright, bye guys.